Right. Recording is on now. So last time I have spoken to you about critical characteristics of information, and I have also spoken to you about components of the information system. These two topics of Unit 1 have already been covered. Now today, a very important topic is there, not because it is really important for security, but it is really important for your examination, because it's a popular topic for exams. So that is the topic I am talking about. Note down the name of the topic. The name of the topic is NSTISSC. NSTISSC. I think you will not be able to guess what it means, no? It is not a familiar abbreviation. So the full form of that is, write down the full form also, National Security Telecommunications and Information System Security Committee. I am repeating, National Security Telecommunications and Information Systems Security Committee. That is the meaning of this. Actually, this is an old name. After your syllabus was written, the name was changed also. So the current name also you take now. The current name is CNSS document. CNSS document, and the full form of CNSS is Committee on National Security Systems. Committee on National Security Systems. Okay. So the whole background of this is that you are already aware that USA, America, was the first country which had adopted information technology across all the government departments and all the corporations. They were the first. Today we may say that we are software pahalwans, but actually originally America was the first. So they felt the need for information security much before we started facing. Actually, in the year 1980, in India, we were hardly aware of information systems and information security. But in 1980 itself, when President George Bush was the president of USA, they were facing serious problems of hacking, malware, firewalls failing and all that. So the president, he gave a directive. Directive means presidential order. The order was called National Security Directive 42. National Security Directive 42, and it was given on the day of 5 July 1990. I think you should note down these things. National Security Directive 42, and it was issued on 5 July 1990. So as per that directive, for all the telecommunication companies and for all the IT companies, this document was issued, NSTISSC, so that they could take good care of their information security. Later, as I told you, the name was changed to CNSS document, but originally the purpose was that. This is a very comprehensive document. Comprehensive in the sense, in this, they don't simply say, okay, install one firewall and you are safe. No, it's not like that. Or they will not say, password should have following rules like one capital, one special letter. It's not piecemeal things like that. This is a very comprehensive document which starts with security policy. The organization, a corporation or a government department, they must have a security policy. Based on that security policy, they should take all the actions, like they should first identify where are our information security components. Where is our network located? Is it indoors or outdoors? What kind of systems we are using? How secure are they? Then people have to be trained under this. Because I think I told in the earlier class also, with the best of technology, if people don't cooperate, we can't achieve anything. Ultimately, people have to cooperate. If they start compromising on security directives, no presidential order can work. So, this particular document, it talks about first laying down the policies, training the people, then identifying our information assets, resources can be said, or you can use a still better word, information assets. So the data which is in my database or my applications or what software is loaded in my server, these are all our assets. Today assets are not only lorries and buses and buildings, they are also assets. But today the major asset of a corporation is in the information. So our information assets have to be identified, then threats have to be identified. For this information system, what are the threats? Example, one threat for every information system is injection of virus. Now, how virus comes? Virus comes because either you may be downloading certain files carelessly from some undesirable sites, or another very common thing is pen drives, CDs. So employees bring their own pen drives. They will not have antivirus in the house. Many of them may not have, and they come to the office, put it in the system. This system gets affected, and since it is on the network, where other systems are able to link to that, the virus spreads to them also. So these things are concerned with identifying the threats. What threats we are facing? Virus could be one threat. Malware could be another threat. Then ransomware. Have you heard of a term called ransomware? Ransomware is where some outsider, some anti-social element, he encrypts all the data in our system remotely. And then he says, I will give you the decryption key provided you pay me so much money. So he's demanding a ransom. Ransom word actually comes from abduction of children. Some criminals, they will catch one small girl and take away and then ring up the father. Come on, pay 10 lakh rupees and take your daughter. That is called ransom. So here ransom is not for a child. Ransom is for my files. And you know how they take this money? Not in dollars. They take in bitcoins. Because dollar comes into the banking channel. If he takes the money in dollar, he has to go and spend somewhere or deposit in a bank. But he takes in bitcoins. Bitcoins give him sort of anonymity, and he can use it not only in USA, he can use it globally anywhere in the world. Advantages are there. So such things, virus, malware, ransomware, these are the threats. And for each threat, our preparation or our method of dealing with that threat is correspondingly different. So you may have to decide that for stopping the virus, first policy I make is I ban USB drives in my system. Now this idea has not gone to my system administrator, otherwise I cannot use this. Someday he will also implement that. So it happens. So for information system, policy is made, people are trained, information assets are identified, and finally threats are identified. And for threat, what is our mechanism of dealing with that threat? That is also identified. So girls, when we do all this, or when a American corporation does all this, then they are doing this in accordance with this document. So, as far as the whole world is concerned, this was a path-breaking initiative by the government of USA in 1980. But today, every country, including India, we have similar documents. Our document will not be called NSTISSE. Our documents are called different. We have a document called Cyber Law, and the Cyber Security Act is there. Our terminology is different. But the fact is that all the countries, including India, they have taken inspiration from this document originally, and they have made their own information security policies. So this topic is understood now? It's clear to you? Now, last time I already talked to you about CIA triad. I said 3 elements of the information security: confidentiality, availability, and integrity. Since they are very important, that is called a CIA triad. Here CIA doesn't stand for America's Central Intelligence Agency. No. Here CIA stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So when you have to draw this diagram, you have to draw it like this in a triangle. The in between that graphic is not required, but just draw a triangle, and on 3 vertices of the triangle, write confidentiality, availability, and integrity, and title of your diagram will be CIA triad. Right? Now, the next topic which I am going to deal with you is 5 pillars of information security. 5 pillars of information security. Normally, a room stands on 4 pillars. You can see 4 pillars in this room also. But for information security, there are 5 pillars. The names of these pillars, note down. Identify. Second, protect. Identify, protect. Third, detect. DETECT, detect. 4, respond. And 5, recover. So in your examination, when you are writing about 5 pillars of information security, the graphic which you have to make, the diagram which you have to make, is in the form of a circle. That diagram is here. So you should draw it like this. Like this, you draw a circle and divide it into 5 parts. In each part, you write one of the names. So these become the 5 pillars of information security. Of course, this can be drawn in other ways also. Another method will be, instead of using a circle, you could use a pentagon with 5 sides. That also can be done, but I find most of the textbooks, they are actually following this method. They are using a circle. If I had originally made this diagram, I would have preferred a pentagon, because pentagon will anyway have 5 sides. So these are the 5 pillars of information security. Now understand the importance of each one of them. The first pillar is identify. What do we mean by identify? There are 2 things you have to identify. 1, identify your assets. Second, identify the threat to that asset. So, what could be my assets? My database is one asset. My apps in the server and in the user terminals, they are one asset. The data which is entered in various apps, for example, settings, views, that's another asset. So, when we are talking of assets, in good old days or bad old days, the assets were only land, buildings, trucks, lorries, buses. That was the meaning of assets earlier. But today, much more important than those physical assets are the information assets. So we should identify our assets of the corporation. And then for each of those assets, what can be the possible threats? An app can get disrupted during an update. Update you are doing with a good intention. But an update, if it contains a bug, the app gets disturbed. It has happened to my system in MBA. I'm using a desktop computer, Windows 10 desktop computer, where I share the printer with madam. Madam there, not here. So my desktop, I give the print command from there and very easily it gets printed on madam's printer. Windows update came. Now in Windows 10, you can't stop the update. If you try to stop again and again, it keeps on coming and disturbing. So update came, and shockingly, that update disabled printer sharing. It should not happen, no? But it happened. I tried many things, settings, reinstalling the printer, disconnecting the printer and again connecting, all that I did, nothing worked. After 10 days, one more update came from Windows, Microsoft. I was afraid, should I install one more update? But I had no option because Microsoft makes it compulsory. I installed that update and happily my printer share started working again. So what does it show you? It shows the trouble with my printer driver or printer app was due to a update, and such things are unintentional. Microsoft also never wanted to trouble the users, but it has happened. Then it has happened to my mobile Gmail app also once. Gmail suddenly developed a snag that I can read the email, but if I want to reply, it crashes. Again, it was due to an update, and when the next update came, they fixed the bug. So, for every information asset, the threats will be different. We have to keep identifying the threat. In your smartphone, you are getting OS updates also many times, correct? You are installing them also. During that OS update also, very rarely it happens, but it happens, during an OS update, the system crashes. Then you have no option except to reinstall the operating system, Android. And when you reinstall the operating system, all your apps you have to reinstall again. It's a big nuisance. You need solid 2 hours for reinstalling the apps and then doing all the settings again and all that. So I'm saying all this, you know all this, but I'm explaining to you that for every information asset, the threats also are different and they have to be separately identified. So first pillar is identify. Identify your information assets and identify what are the threats for them. The second is protect. If we can proactively protect that asset from that threat, That is the best solution. For example, I told you virus comes from USB drives. So if I make a policy and strictly implement it also, saying that USB drives are not to be used in office, nobody should be carrying them here. If at all you want to transfer a file, email the file to yourself, download it in the house or download into your mobile phone. If we make a rule like that, we are protecting the asset. For that particular threat, this protection works. This protection will not work for all threats. For example, corruption of the database itself doesn't happen because of USB. For that, the reasons are also different and the threat is different. Protection method also will be different. There maybe you have to do something else like frequent backup of the database and then recovery when it crashes and all that. That may have to be done. So after the assets are identified, threats are identified, then it becomes necessary to protect them also. So second pillar of information security is protecting. Protecting is proactive protecting. After having identified the threat, we go ahead and find out method how this can be protected. Third is detect. Because even after we protect, sometimes the hackers or ransomware writers, they are able to find a vulnerability in our system. Through that vulnerability, they attack our system and then they cause a lot of damage. So a hacker, as it is, will not be able to log into my system. But let us say he identifies one DLL file in Windows which can be accessed remotely or some such thing, and he also knows that once this is damaged, password checking can be bypassed. So if this happens, what happens? What is the result of that? The result of that will be that the threat has now attacked me. It happens in firewalls many times. Because firewalls basically work with a policy. The firewall will have a policy that packets of this size or this type or coming from this country or coming from this website, they are to be disallowed. All firewalls, they basically work with settings, nothing more than that. When a packet of data comes, they can read the packet of data and know its size very easily. Size can be known because packet sizes are generally not very large, 10 kilobytes maximum. Then every packet has got a header also. From that header we come to know from which country this packet has originated, from which company it is coming, from which website it is coming. So we have to lay down certain policies in our firewall settings that these packets are disallowed. That is how firewall protects us. Now imagine, this is all very fine. We have identified 100 websites from where this kind of vulnerability can be there. But what is the guarantee that 101st site will not be started by somebody? He can also start now. So in my firewall settings, that will not be there. From there, the attack can happen. Firewall can be bypassed. And once the firewall is bypassed, a lot of havoc can be done. A lot of havoc. The most horrible havoc which happens is the first thing they do is they deface our website remotely. So on my website there is an index page or home page. They write all sorts of dirty things on that and my website is defaced. And when website is defaced, it is like my store is closed. When website is in that condition, any customer will buy anything from you? No one. No? Nobody will have trust on you. And this has happened to very, very secure websites in India. I have practically seen it. When I was in industry, my maximum business was in Ministry of Defence, Government of India. And therefore, it was very regular practice for me that first thing when I come in the morning, I open the Ministry of Defence website to check what are the new changes coming. That was a daily activity for me. One morning, I opened the Indian MOD website, and shockingly what I found, pro-Pakistan slogans. Pro-Pakistan slogans. Now our Indian defense will not put that, no? This was done by some external agency. And obviously, at night, their firewall has failed to protect it. But they acted very fast. Within about half an hour, somebody in Delhi detected that. And they rectified it. That's a different matter. But we have to have that mechanism that some person, some office or some group of people in our company should be given that responsibility that they have to be constantly verifying where we have been attacked by the threat. This is detection. Like in police also it happens, no? Detecting the crime. Punishment of the crime is later. When we find the culprit, when we file a suit against him, when he will be awarded the punishment by the judge, when he will go into jail, that all takes time. But what is our first activity? Detecting that this is what has happened. So in information security also, the third pillar is detection. Well, students, the philosophy of information security is actually nothing but the philosophy of security itself. Like for national security or security of a state by police, we make policies now and we take certain actions. Similar thing is to be done for information security also. In earlier years, security meant only security of the nation, security of the transport system and all that. But now, since information security is most important, here also we have to do the same things like detecting the crime next. So our third pillar of security is detection. Fourth pillar is responding. So for each kind of threat which enters our information system, how do we respond? The response will not be same for everything. Response depends upon the type of cyber crime which has happened. In the outside world, crimes happen. In information world, cyber crimes happen. But both are crimes. No difference. So here also we have to decide how do we respond to this particular event which has happened. These events are not happy events. They are all very unhappy events. But we have to locate or we have to decide appropriately what kind of response is needed. So one example, let's say. Due to the failure of your uninterrupted power supply system or cooling system, your database lost connectivity for maybe 5 minutes and a lot of transactions remain partially fulfilled. Now, this point you have studied in database also in the previous semester. So you must have been taught that there are two methods: roll forward, roll back. Remember? Roll forward and roll back. So that was our method for dealing with the damage to the database or dealing with the loss of data relating to transactions. But when the threat is something else, the method will also be different. So our response depends upon the threat which has taken place, the threat which has affected our information system. So after detecting only, we can decide that this will be our response to this. And the last pillar now, recover. You must recover. Recover in the sense, bring the system to the earlier working condition. So let us say you have done all the roll forwards for transactions which can be completed, all the roll backs for the transactions which have not been completed, where refunds are to be given to the customers for money debited but not credited. You have passed the credit entries also. When you have done that, you have recovered. Recovery is not very fast always. Recovery can take time. As in the example which I gave you, where refunds are involved, you will not be able to do it instantly. It takes time because your accounts department may have to participate in that. Some approvals may be required. All that is there. Therefore, recovery is the next pillar of security. So these 5 things are called 5 pillars of information security. Sorry, I am not able to follow. Can you speak loudly or remove the mask?
These are the 5 pillars.
5 pillars of information security. Clear? No other doubt, na? Okay. So we'll stop today's class here and continue the same unit in the next class. Okay? Thanks for attending the class. Right.